Good evening. Welcome to the Dave Show Midstream Reading Series. My name is Richard Terrill. We want to thank First Unitarian for giving us this great space out of the goodness of their liberal religious hearts. And it's a lovely room. And I should let you know we have a website, midstreamreadingseries.wordpress.com. And on there you'll find past readings, list of readers, and in a few days a video of this reading will be on the website if you want to tell other people about it. The sound, they also have a new sound system here. I think it's pretty good. Am I feeding bad? Okay. So, but if for some reason you can't hear, we're all friends. Just raise your hand and the reader will adjust or I'll crank it. But probably the former. We have a mailing list as well, and if you're on it, we don't bug you. Two notices a year. We don't let anybody else use it, even the hosts. So if you'd like to be added to the mailing list, if you're not already on it, books are for sale on this table, and remind you, I know you've heard this, some of you heard this from me before, but in the words of poet Kenneth Patchen, people who say they like poetry and never buy any are cheap sons of bitches. There it is, over there, and the authors will be happy to chat with you and sign the books after the reading. Important thing, the bathrooms. Take a right, take another right. It's over there. And that's the business. So I get to read two poems, new poems, which for me means within the last year. Shike poke. You're an old shike poke, my father would say, with a scratch behind the ear of any old and friendly dog he'd meet. As a kid, I wondered how a dog could be a shike poke, if a shike poke was a real thing at all, and not just some creature he'd made up. One too smart to be anything more than lazy, sitting in the sun at the end of a long tether, and shyly greeting any stranger who looked like he might be good for a scratch behind the ear. Years later, just to be sure, I looked online, and AI, which I think of as a guy named Al, who thinks he's smarter than the rest of us, Al tells me that shike poke is slang for a heron, especially a green heron, one with a habit of shitting whenever startled. I never knew that part before. I wonder even if my father knew it before intelligence came in a box. Maybe he knew once and then forgot, which happens to me now too, more than I can remember. Sometimes that scares me shitless as any green bird. But I think my father knew, just didn't say so to a kid, that a shike poke once startled into motion would leave a long white ribbon of digested fish, its claim on infamy. Only I didn't know that then, 7 years old, and looking up to him as he leaned down, smiling over some lonely, dozing mutt. One more, and then on to the featured attractions. This is called Foundling Fathers. I have to pronounce it correctly. Foundling Fathers. Begins with an epigraph. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. The Declaration of Independence. I like to read their long biographies. Adams was pompous, officious, and monarchical, says the book on Hamilton. Hamilton was monarchical, officious, and pompous, says the book on Adams. The authors agree only that Jefferson was to blame for everything. But Jefferson warned against power in the executive. It's a drink too strong, like having only one version of a long life story. He warned against a Congress of ass-kissers, even if he didn't use those exact words. warned of behemoth banks, the tyranny of capital, even if he didn't call it that then. It all sounds so familiar you could just read about it in the 18th century and not bother living through it now. A life story is cobbled from the events between the events forgotten. Arrange them any way you like in the market basket of consciousness, but know always what's not there is real too. You can't have one version and call it true. You can't have one person deciding everything, biographer or not. It must have been hard to invent a new country, like a story not yet written by many hands. The founding fathers were neither. Foundling children, perhaps, nurtured by a new place, conscribed by history, but abandoned again by time. Katrina Vandenberg is the author of 2 books of poems from Milkweed Editions, The Alphabet Not Unlike the World, and Atlas. She regularly contributes essays to Orion magazine, and the work she has published there has been acclaimed as notable in Best American Essays series. She is a former Fulbright Fellow to the Netherlands and the recipient of poetry fellowships from the McKnight, Bush, Amy Clampett, and McDowell Foundations. After many years of serving as poetry editor of Waterstone Review and a tenured professor in the creative writing programs at Hamline University, she recently became a full-time mom and writer. Katrina Vandenberg.
There's no way I can follow that. Thanks so much for being here, and thank you. I should wait until Dick comes back to thank him. But thank you all. I'm really privileged to be reading with the group of people I'm reading with tonight and reading for the people I'm reading for. I'm going to be reading 1 short hybrid essay and 2 poems. The hybrid essay is called On Burying the Dead, 3 Walks in the Charlotte Partridge Ordway Japanese Garden in St. Paul, Minnesota. And it's actually 3 haibun that I strung together to make 1 essay. For those of you who don't know, a haibun is it's a form that was invented a few hundred years ago by a Japanese poet named Basho, and he started it as part of his travel journals. And so he would have sort of a paragraph of prose, and he would kind of cap it off with a haiku at the end. And I've always told my students these are great to write if you're really busy, if you're traveling. It might be a fun way to do your travel journal. But then during the COVID pandemic, like many of you, I wasn't really going anywhere. And the one place I was going, in that kind of strange liminal time where you were allowed in some places but not others, and only in certain ways, I was going to the Japanese garden. And so I decided that was my travel. And I put 3 of these together. 1. Oh, by the way, I'll do this when I hit the haiku, so you know. when you know it looks different on the page. 1. Hello, winter. Hello, earthen path. Drained stone pond. Where is your water? Where are the koi? Hello, snow-shouldered corkscrew pine. Hello, ginkgos. Hello. Hello. After being closed for nearly a year for the COVID pandemic, the conservatory has reopened, but with restrictions. We come according to the time on the reservation. We walk the path in one direction. Hello, garden. Chime, chime. Hi, Dad. My father, a solitary person who never used to phone, is lonely now. Probably the koi are in a tank in a back room somewhere. I miss them and their quivering huddle near the edge whenever they saw a person, their hunger and hope that they might be fed. Hello, boulders partly buried in the earth. Hello, 400 tons of rock. Do you miss your quarry in Apple Valley, your stone brothers and sisters? The Japanese refer to rocks as the bones of the earth, as dragon bones. a skeleton that holds the world together. In my first pandemic, the AIDS years, when I visited friends near death, I thought that our last moments together would be luminous, like in the movies. Really, we waded through the muck of survival. We might spend the whole time helping them find a comfortable position. Or we would sit in bleak silence because my dying friend had reached a place I could not follow. Today in the garden, I feel as if I'm visiting a sick person, as if the whole world has gotten sick and is leaving, and nothing is left to care any longer about rocks and sun. I picture the koi in a shallow, water-filled box, glinting in the dark, a child's idea of treasure. Their glint, 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 and undulation, their shimmy and flick. Hello, orange lanterns bobbing underwater, little koi, wherever you are. Here is what I know. Death is not scary if you spend enough time around it. Hello, yellow caution tape blocking entry points to the bridges. The path toward death is different each time, but the markers grow predictable. Also, the effects of death on a living body, say mine, are cumulative, and each death calls back and piles upon all the earlier ones. After so many people I loved died of AIDS in my 20s, for a while I had planned to spend my life doing hospice work. Massage therapy. Easier to stay among the bones of the earth, I thought then, than to always be moving in and out and in. Hello, gray sky. Master Gardener Masami Matsuda, wherever you are, thank you for designing this garden. When this garden was first built a few decades ago, the American workers did not understand how to place stones the Japanese way. The whole crew stood around for hours with their shovels and cranes, disbelieving, while Matsuda and his assistants stared at a single stone, waiting for it to speak and reveal its face. Each stone, a small drama, was how one of them later described it. Matsuda-san, I want to learn how to be like you. The man whose city, Nagasaki, was bombed, who then designed a garden for the people who bombed it. 2. It is a long operation to get my mother to sit up straight in her chair, stand, then squeeze the handbrakes on her walker to release them. Never mind the walk to the bathroom. Taking the first step is always the hardest, says my nurse sister. But not that long ago, my mother and father regularly drove hundreds of miles in a single day to visit me. Sometimes my mother flew alone. My mother loved teenagers and young people, and she was game for a lot. When I was in my 20s, she went with me to concerts put on by groups she did not know, ate foods she'd never heard of, drank coffee with my writer friends, attended poetry readings. Once in Boston, she slept with me in a loft in the living room of the headquarters for Bikes Not Bombs, back when it was still only a few steps up from being a squatter house near Jackson Square. And for breakfast, ate leftover mole the roommates had learned to make in Nicaragua. It is hard to remember that she came to this conservatory with me, and at least once we walked in these gardens. The main stone bridge here zigzags, I was once told, because the Japanese believe evil spirits can only travel in straight lines. This is a myth. My mother is not an evil spirit. The Japanese built bridges that zigzag because they are aesthetically pleasing and keep the walker attentive to the view and the moment. It turned out that in the moment, my mother was terrified she would fall. She got halfway across the bridge and stopped. For all my mother's independence and zippy one-liners, she feared not being held. She feared staircases, if stairs didn't have backs on them and she could see through to the floor below. She feared amusement park rides. She was halfway across the zigzag bridge, and a crowd was developing behind her, visitors who couldn't keep moving along the garden path until she moved. I tried logic. Mom, you're not going to fall. But it wasn't working. And because I was kinder than I was when I was a teenager, because by then I had been wanting for a long time to become a parent myself, I went back out on the bridge, took her hand, and talked softly until my mother finally set one foot forward. I coaxed her the rest of the way across. 3. I have so many dead now. Not just pets and grandparents, but childhood neighbors and hemophiliacs and friends and most of my teachers. One day before too long, my mother and my father and my dear poetry teacher Patty Ann will join them. My dead remind me of the lanterns lit at the end of the Oban Festival, held here every August. Oban is to Japan what Day of the Dead is to Mexico. Oban is a 3-day holiday to remember the ancestors and welcome them back to Earth. Lanterns are set outside doors to guide the ancestors home. In Japan, at the end of Oban, the lanterns are floated out with the tides to guide the dead into the sea, where it is believed that all life begins, and back to the land of the dead. At dusk during the festival at the conservatory, lanterns crowd and bobble through the tiny stream that runs through the garden. Volunteers working the festival stand on the shore and use long sticks to push along the lanterns in order to prevent them from getting moored among the rocks. When I was young, I thought it would be sad to carry so many dead people with me. Instead, their heaviness makes me feel abundant. I can wish for so many things. My pockets are heavy with coin. Suddenly, I own a wealth of stories about people who were loved and here, but now are not. I don't mean to bore you, but I must get them out of my head and let them float away. And if I am honest, I do want you to see their flickering lights and my great exhale, blowing out the birthday candles, their sparkling whoosh onto the dark water. Thank you. I had a well-rehearsed little intro that I forgot. And one of the things I wanted to tell you is that Oban is happening right now. It's the second day of the 3-day festival in Japan. And I don't know when the festival comes at Como. It's usually the 3rd weekend of August. I don't know if that's this coming weekend or the next, but there that is. And I also wanted to mention, and now I'm glad I didn't mention this till the end, but my mom died in February of this year. So I had written that. She had a stroke and was bedridden for about 6 years. So I had written that during that period, and now, of course, it's a newly, differently relevant piece. I am going to close with 2 poems. One of them is about the letter M from the alphabet, not unlike the world. It was read by Garrison Keillor on the Writer's Almanac, and if you had asked me to bet my house on what poem he would pick, I never would have thought this would be the poem. Because for one thing, there's no punctuation, and anyway. M. The Berkshire Hills, the book that opens again with each curve, where the woods take back what they just said. Ditch lilies, open, orange, eager. In the Berkshires, the mills are no longer milling paper, milling wool. They're milling memories of themselves as useful. They mill the skein of highway, clumps of lilies, woolly thoughts. The letter M, its hieroglyph, a set of Mediterranean waves, and the Phoenicians who drew M first, ship makers, wave walkers, consider them first looking out, then in. The mills are milling the Housatonic River. It skims 1,000 rocks, is almost close enough to touch. All landscape here is intimate, hemmed in, a book close to the face, not an open book, as we say, more the way a baby sees from its mother's breast to her face, and that is all. An open book is one small room, its talk a little talk, its form a reinforcement of 500 years of private thought, along with the invention of the separate room, a sudden set of separate fires. The ancient Berkshire hills, their mills are milling spotted dairy cows and woolly sheep, alphabet of camels, oxen, fish. If my northern tribe had drawn M first, M would have been a hieroglyph for milk. The cows, goats, sheep they learn to drink from or starve. La mer, the sound of M for mother in nearly every language, the early sounds a baby makes. M for delicious, the motors hum, delicious drowsing off. The shape of these worn down hills, the mills mill poems, walls of stone. Tonight they mill the stars. M for ma, the Japanese idea of space and silence as a thing, not absence. On the radio today, they talk about the death of books, of spacious thought, the book of footnote, a single clump of lilies, one river thread. I think of books as milk from other animals. And I'm going to close with a first day of school poem, because it's the first day of school in a few weeks for so many of us. Some people are teaching in maybe just a week, I don't know. And I want to thank you once more, and thank you for hosting the series so beautifully. Handwriting analysis. On the first day of 4th grade, Mrs. Hunter collected our penmanship samples to save until June. By then, she said, we'd write in the handwriting we would have all our lives. Though she probably read that in a book on child development, I was so excited I could hardly stand it. In 9 months, my adult self would be born. She would write me a letter, and in the ways she swooped, careened, and crossed her T's, I could read everything I would need to know. We were writing ourselves into the future. We came closer each time we turned the silver gears in the sharpener near the door, the wood shavings tumbling inside, smelling as if a house were being built.
That was Katrina Vandenberg. Renee Gilmore is a multi-genre writer, essayist, and poet. She writes about her experiences growing up in a family of car enthusiasts, mechanics, racers, and collectors, and navigating a family full of secrets. She fearlessly explores the illusion of happiness. Through her writing and lived experience, Renee proves that resilience can be practiced both by accident and by intention. Renee holds degrees from the University of New Mexico and Hamline University and identifies as a person with a disability. Her work has appeared in many literary journals, including the Louisville Review, Fatal Flaw, and Pink Panther magazine, among others. Her debut memoir, Wayfinding, from Trio House Press, will be published in October of this year. She lives in suburban Minneapolis with her husband, Stephen, and works in corporate learning and development. Renee Gilmore.
I am thrilled to be here. And Dick, thank you so much for that introduction. And what you might not know is Dick was my editor on this book. So it's especially poignant to be here. And thank you for Chris at Trio House for believing in me and believing in this book. So I did not set out to write a memoir. I set out to write a chapbook. So 3 years ago, I wanted to write a chapbook about my father, who was a car enthusiast, and my relationship with him. And I was 6 poems in, and I said, this is not a chapbook, and it is not about my father. So I am thrilled to share a couple of stories with you tonight. And Wayfinding is really a story of travel, trauma, adventures, and healing, and a story of one woman attempting to remap a life towards joy. I will be reading 2 stories. The first is called Angels in Plaid Shirts. It is from the section of the book called Postcards from the Road. angels in plaid shirts. Thank you, angels. 20 miles outside Sydney, Nebraska, I heard the thump, thump of a tire that was breathing its last, leaving its skin in the right lane of I-80 and its bones on the wheel. It was January, and I was leaving Minnesota, far in the rear view, and heading to Albuquerque. I was a mid-year transfer student to the University of New Mexico, and it was time to go. I was both driving toward my future and away from something else, away from a lot of things. I had made mistakes, and I had put myself in danger, real danger, more than once. In the previous 2.5 years, I had been battered and nearly destroyed by 2 separate assaults. And I lost the scholarship that I needed to stay at the Catholic college I attended in northern Minnesota. I made terrible choices in men, money, and alcohol. I had recently come home from studying in Ireland, and during the last couple months I was there, I got engaged to a boy, and then we broke up, and it was messy, and I felt lost. When I got back from Ireland, Duluth had gotten too small, too cold, too provincial for me, and I needed a change. There were too many people I knew and too many places that held very bad memories. I fired off applications to colleges in warm places that I could sort of afford. I was accepted by Arizona State, the University of Texas at Austin, and the University of New Mexico. New Mexico is the cheapest. I prepared for a new start in the desert. I didn't know a soul in Albuquerque, and that was okay with me. The inside of my 1976 Plymouth Duster was packed to the rafters with pots and pans, clothes, and my Smith Corona typewriter, hefty in its blue case. The trunk of the Duster was a treasure trove of shoes, frying pans, and bedding in white garbage bags, anchored by my 50-pound RCA television. I had been fiddling with the radio, trying to find the sweet spot between Jesus and Dolly Parton. And when I heard that sound and felt the pull of the wheel, I had been on the road for hours, driving by dormant cornfields with their lonely, stubby stalks, waving at truckers, and eating gas station donuts. I was trying to make it to my grandmother's house in Fort Morgan, Colorado, for lemon cake pie, homemade biscuits, and easy games of cards. I confidently flew by every exit for Grand Island, Nebraska, where my family usually stopped, with the hubris that only a 20-year-old can possess. I pulled over on the shoulder and stopped. This was years before cell phones. If I got out, that flat tire was going to be real. I thought I'd just sit for a minute. I hummed along to Led Zeppelin on the radio, ate a chocolate-covered donut. That minute turned into 5, and I finally clicked out of my seatbelt and opened the door. Yep, the left rear tire, flatter than flat, and missing several layers of rubber. I know how to change a tire. My father wouldn't let me out in the world without it. We had practiced and practiced when I got my driver's license at 16. And by practice, I mean my father stood in the driveway in his baggy jeans, plaid shirt, and cardigan, smoking a Benson Hedges cigarette. He pointed out where I missed something, very occasionally telling me, that was pretty good. I knew where to locate the jack, I knew how to loosen lug nuts, and I could heft the spare out of the trunk. I knew what to do. I opened the trunk and sighed. It had taken 2 of us, my father and I, to get that huge RCA television into the trunk. There is no way one of me was going to hoist it out. And the spare tire, which we had checked just 2 days before, was tucked in its compartment under everything. I looked to the freeway, and there were no cars for several flat miles in either direction. More sighing. I started unloading the trunk on the side of the road. Comforters, shoes, a spare winter coat, my red slimline telephone. I dug and lifted until nothing was left in the cadaverous space but that damn RCA. I rocked it one way and then the other. There was just no way I could get it out. I stood with my hands on my hips. I was a 20-year-old girl with no more good ideas. I turned toward the freeway. I heard the distant rumble of 18 wheels seeding the road long before I saw it. I had no choice. I flapped my right hand out listlessly. I tried hard to look brave and tough and not cry. Tried not to think about the fact that I could be kidnapped right there by the side of the road, or murdered. My picture and story would end up on 48 Hours for sure. The mountain of a vehicle started to slow, edging towards the shoulder, and came to a stop with a whoosh of air brakes. The driver, with his straw hat, cowboy boots, brown suspenders, and round belly, stepped down from the truck cab. He was as old as my dad, sun-soaked and strong. "Looks like you have a problem there, little lady." Without permission, 2 tears wobbled down my face as he approached me. He hitched up his jeans. "Let's see what we got." He helped me yank that TV out of the trunk like a tooth from a socket. We grabbed the spare tire and the jack and got to work. I jacked up the car and he unscrewed the lug nuts. One was very stubborn and he swore at it with great creativity and enthusiasm. We pulled that tire off, and as we did, the rest of the rubber shrugged off the rim onto the ground. We put the wheel, its once shiny surface, now pitted and scratched, on my front seat, and loaded everything back into the trunk. He got on his CB and found out good news and bad. The good news is there was a garage 20 miles away in Sydney, and they could get me a tire. The bad news is they could get it tomorrow or the next day. He told them I was coming. I thanked him and offered him $10 for helping me, but he laughed and told me just to spend it on a new tire. I pulled back on the interstate and drove far slower than the posted speed with the radio off, straining to hear any signs of distress from the spare tire. There was honking as I was passed by every car and truck heading in the same direction. I made it to Sydney. I found the garage and pulled a third of my cash out of my red wallet to pay George the mechanic for a new tire. I left my car and most of my possessions in his care. I stayed overnight a few blocks away in a Howard Johnson's motor inn with the dresser pushed in front of the door. When I walked back to the garage early the next afternoon, the tire had arrived. George clearly felt sorry for me. "Hey, I got a kid your age." He didn't charge me to remove the spare and tuck it back into the compartment in the trunk, next to the jack, under the bags of bedding, and the RCA. George said that damn TV weighed 60 pounds. I made it to Fort Morgan a day late. I stopped overnight, ate 2 good meals, and was sent on my way in the morning with a lemon cake pie and a plastic fork. From Fort Morgan, it was about an 8-hour drive to Albuquerque. I arrived right before the sun was thinking of setting over the mesa, and there was just enough golden hour left to read the street signs. I already had my key, so I hauled everything out of the duster and up to my apartment until nothing remained but the TV. I stood in the parking lot in the deep twilight and assumed the hands on hips position, and I stared into the trunk. An angel in the shape of a plaid-shirted man named DeGrazia, or that's the name he gave me anyway, asked me if I needed some help. Together, slowly, we carried that TV from the parking lot up the stairs to my second-floor studio apartment. The next morning, I wanted to thank him. I described him to the apartment manager. She said that no one named DeGrazia lived there. I never saw him again. I was not prone to thinking about God, about angels, about mysterious, mystical protectors. I attended Mass when required by family obligation. I lit candles in church because the ritual was comforting. But my hard-edged cynicism about religion, about those all-powerful beings who supposedly lived in the clouds, who controlled what happened to me in everyday life, had begun to seep in. It all started to make less sense than when I blindly accepted it earlier in my life. All the dogma, the unlikely to be true biblical myths I absorbed during 5 years of Catholic school, 2 years of confirmation class, and then Catholic college. I mean, didn't God control the hands of the men who wrote the Bible, whispered in their ears, shared the truth, trademark, the good news, his word to control the people? But I digress. Maybe a benevolent God, a personal savior could not exist. I was starting to think that maybe this patriarchal God was just not for me. Maybe I had daddy issues. How could this Father God explain sitting on the sidelines while I experienced horrible, evil things? I was sad and angry, and I wanted answers. But at that point, I didn't have anything better to replace Christianity, Catholicism, so I continued to search. I wanted to believe so badly. And the next piece I'm reading is Apologies to My Body as a Vehicle. Dear body, look at you. You're my one and only vehicle. You were once brand new, delivered pink and precious right from the factory. Maybe even a special order. Some would say you are my first love, but I'm not sure that's true at all. You're trusty, getting us from one place to another, usually. You're the place to park my head, because we both know that I'm all thoughts and memories these days, and following directions has never really been my thing. As we traveled through life, your wheels rolled under me, propelling us forward to the next adventure, or terror, or joy, or just a fork in the road. You're my daily driver, the grocery getter, the one I can count on, even when times are bad, like really bad. You've been wobbly, you've slid, you've spun, every bit out of control. Your wheels have fallen off, and you've been so out of alignment, I haven't known where we were going, or why, or if we would even make it. Your chassis is covered with the thinnest veil of skin, and no one would accuse you of being top of the line, at least not anymore. Maybe 30 years ago, when you were still shiny and sparkling and didn't even know it. In fact, you're pretty banged up now, but I'll never trade you in. You're high mileage, but as my father would say, you're a real good runner. Your exterior is scuffed and of indeterminate color now. It used to be a perfect shade of tan that looked bronze and supple in the summer sunlight. Now it bears the aftermath of bad decisions and scars from the war with my younger self in the sun. Icarus and I used to be friends, you know. Now we're just frenemies, and we only keep in touch on Facebook. Body, you're pale, you're faded and spotty, but you're still here. And for that, I suppose I should be grateful. Body, when I close my eyes, I want to see the reflection of our many travels in what's left of your finish. I really do. Every deep scar, pock, and stretch mark gouged in the hood, the river of healed stitches scratched into your doors, the window that refuses to open. The vestiges of long ago accidents, collisions with solid objects we didn't see in time. I couldn't fix your damage until I had time and money. I'm sorry it took so long. Your replacement parts were never quite as good as the factory originals. I'm sorry, I did my best. On the outside, you looked passable for years and years, and for the longest time, no one knew that you were being held together with Bondo and gray primer and slowly dissolving as the rust gobbled up your insides, until we made it stop. I want to see my history reflected in you. I do. I want to be reminded of the roads we've traveled by choice or by circumstance. I have days, weeks even, when I can only see blackness or the emptiness of dense fog in the rear view. I want to know everything that happened to you, to us, but I haven't been able to look at you with that kind of scrutiny, Body. I just can't. The reports I have are from other people and places, and they only give facts about what happened after, about how I was after. There are no credible witnesses. I have to confess something to you, Body. I have hated you. I mean, really hated you. But it's not your fault. Things were done to us that left us unable to love. I'm sorry for so many things, Body. I tried to save myself over the years in the only ways I knew how. To quiet your rattling, I drove and drove and drove and left your engine dry. You seized up and stalled. I didn't care. I cut you, first in tiny hidden places, and then out in the open where everyone could see, but no one ever did. I hungered for attention and excitement, and you bore the brunt of what happened next. I almost got us killed, twice, 4 times, if you count the times I tried to do it myself. I could only take so much. Even with those bad decisions, we had some good times on the road, Body. You have to admit, the 80s were fun, though 1988 might have been a little extra. I'm sorry. Body, I've been distracted. I have ignored you, your maintenance, your warning lights, sometimes on purpose. I could not bear to look at you or touch you. I couldn't go there with you. I just couldn't. Recently, I learned that not all weight is physical, and that made me pause. Today, my head is clear, full of purpose. It's taken time, so much time, years on my journey, our journey, but I feel so new, so ready. I see your floorboards are decaying, your wheel wells collapsing. I'm not surprised, but I'm sad. I hope I can save you. I am sorry for so many things, Body. Please forgive me. Let me drive us home. Thank you.
That was Renee Gilmore. Emilio DeGrazia from Winona founded Great River Review in 1977. A collection of fiction, Enemy Country, was selected by Ann Tyler for a Writer's Choice Award. And a novel, Billy Brazil, was chosen for a Minnesota Voices Award. A second fiction collection, 17 Grams of Soul, received a Minnesota Book Award in 1995. And a second novel, A Canticle for Bread and Stones, appeared in 1996. His essay collections, Burying the Tree and Eyeshadow, memoir, Walking on Air in a Field of Greens, and Seasonings, a first collection of poetry, followed. He has judged contests for the Society of Midland Authors, memoir in 2021, poetry in 2023 to 25, and serves as a judge for the Maria Faust Sonnet Contest. He and his wife Monica have co-edited 3 Noden Press anthologies of Minnesota writing, and he has served 2 terms as Winona's Poet Laureate. What Trees Know, poetry, was published in 2020. Emilio DeGrazia.
Thank you, Richard Terrill, for inviting me here. I feel very honored, really. It's sort of strange to return to St. Paul. I spent a lot of literary hours here, and then slipped downstream. to that little island city called Winona, and it feels as if I've really moved up in the world to be here today. Am I being watched? Perhaps. I want to thank Richard and the Unity Church. Unitarian, imagine that. Imagine a unified Christian church. I think one of the lost chapters in American history is the contribution that the Unitarians have made to our society. And I just wish younger people could tune into that understanding. The sense of dream that I had returning to St. Paul, which I set one of my novels here, by the way, Canticle for Bread and Stones, was set in St. Paul. But there's a sense of a dream that I had entering this room where I saw so many familiar faces that had no names attached to them in a way, and there was a kind of a dream quality to seeing some of you again. I guess that's what it means to be mature. I want to thank you for taking the time to come here and to be here in this unified place, I think, where important people, not necessarily me, gather to reaffirm something quiet but important, and that is the power of language. 15 minutes. At dinner tonight, my daughter, Leah, I love that name, said, 15 minutes? I said, yeah. She said, well, if you talk really fast, she said, you'd be able to get in at least 5 or 6 of your unpublished books. I've timed this presentation, and it goes to 16 minutes. So I owe everyone here a minute. So if you will give me a minute, I will share with you a recipe for purity. I like to cook, by the way. In a clear glass bowl, mix pollen and olive oil. Add prayers infused with exhausted thought. And add a whiff of damp underwear. Pour lamb blood into the mix. Add 2 horns and stir in lust. Now, add thin slices of tripe and genitals and simmer into a boil of half-baked theologies. Then stuff bombshells with beliefs. Sprinkle with words. The Greek word puros, from which the word purity is derived, means fire. I don't know the Greek word for impurity. We're all suffering from war fever, so I have some homeopathic remedies for you. Take 1 coffee bean, darkest roast, and with molars grind it into a pulp. Ensconce it in the hollow of your cheek and nip at its bitterness with your tongue. Or take your grandmother's sweaty black dress and boil it in a cast iron pot. Place your head over the stew and pull the wool over your eyes. Then breathe the vapors deeply in. Or bite your lip just hard enough to draw blood. Then swirl the blood in your mouth until the acrid taste turns sweet. Do not swallow or spit out. Or take one of the zeros heaped like cordwood in the boneyard next to the railroad tracks. Remove one eye from her face, brown and beautiful, and wait for it to dissolve on your tongue. Where did she go? The missing in action girl? The one about absence that doesn't rhyme. The song unsung about the singing child with the dancing feet no longer running wild. The girl suddenly numb and out of time. This MIA I see is on no radar screen, and her name appears on no newsy page. Her mother's leers and grief are seldom seen behind the black silence that veils her rage. While holy men pray to the God on high and await his firepower to avenge the crime, the girls' warrior dads can't answer why their hymns have neither reason nor rhyme. This child's lost song echoes belief's new norm, the unmeasured loss of content and form. We have a lot of payments due. To Sylvie Water, for example, for the disappearing acts that magically turn diapers white. To legs on their way to their first day of school in rhythm with ABCs already memorized. To the mother who gave them milk and baths, mindless of the grammar of contractions and blood. To the father in the factory baking our bread, in the coke ovens and open hearth. To the 6th grade teacher who didn't like poetry and just loved my first poem. To my underwear, hiding careless fragrances under arrest when folded and stacked in a drawer. To the destitute old man slouching on a curb who gazed at the moonlight in my eyes. To the incomprehensible space-time chaos of galaxies that keep my mind busy scripting one-way signs. To the wife who washed diapers and underwear and walked my children to school and back. To carrots and beets and nameless dead cows, and chickens, big-eyed fish, and pepper sauce. To stars that align themselves just right to make me too young or old for the latest war. To mom and dad, long gone, still watching me from the garden in back, their jeans sprouting beans. To dirt, my eyes open to it, looking up at grass, growing from my skull like hair. There are old miracle cures. One is the obvious sun, rising as usual, while the earth stands still, spinning its rounds, as I breathe my fill of air out and in. Once I saw a rainbow of fish scales shimmering in shallow seas, and a solitary gull on a rock, with no interest in what worries me. And then I saw trees stand up to terrible storms, and the cat in my lap gazing into my eyes, wondering what sort of strange mouse I am. On highways, I see passing cars get so small they widen the windshield space for me to take in forests, hills, and signs of the times. And my boy's legs still have enough rhythm to rhyme one old foot in front of the next in time to get me home to my lovely wife. Old miracles, the sky is too small for them. The conversion of water into grapes, the resurrection of life in a seed, the walking on water dance of a bug. Then there is spring cleaning. When the time to clarify has arrived, time to toss out the old bike, the hose with the hole, the stinky hats and shoes, the fish tank, stale paint, the attic stuff, cracked violin, boxfuls of loose thoughts, on paper scraps, first communion and wedding suits, and if he dares, the brown photos of unremembered faces and names. It's time to ask then Earth what he owes for freeloading here, his paying no rent to the lordly valleys, deserts, forts, seas, and spacious sky, Grand Canyon depths, landfilled by the messes he makes. The time has come to clarify what gift he can provide from this body exuding odors, pew, so it may rise again, perhaps suspended in a naked tree, alone and beautiful on a snow-frozen plain where rainbow shimmers off the wings of the blackest birds that loft themselves into winds, whistling weird music through white bones. So why do I write poetry? Because so much depends on a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. Not because the wheelbarrow carries rubies or wood to somebody's fire pit or bank account, but because the wheelbarrow suddenly exists red, and the rainwater suddenly exists glazing, and white chickens exist, the very ones whose legs and breasts and wings I devour without ever knowing the names of the men and women who slice their throats, or where exactly the blood soaks in or pools. I write poetry because when I'm searching for words, I suddenly see the inchworm on the apricot leaf and the tomcat leering at the cardinal from the branch of the tree, while the crow caws down at the cat in a sky so empty blue, galaxies spiral invisibly in it. I write poetry because language is the veil covering the facelessness of the strange unknown. Because in the word weave of metaphor or F words, I make my lacework or shroud. I write poetry because I love symphonies, composed by the wheelbarrow, as red as the fire pit, the rubies, the cardinal and blood, and because I love rhythm and blues, the crow in the tree cawing at the cat, in a sky so brooding and blue, the cauldron blaze of galaxies is brilliant in it. I write poetry because word laces build bridges between the inchworm hunched on the apricot leaf and chickens who don't know the names of the men and women who slice their throats. I write poetry because I want to weave my veils and names, connect and know and honor the inchworm, the cat, cardinal and crow, the blossoms of apricot trees, and the white hen that suddenly appears beside the red wheelbarrow. So by her sacrifice I may be atoned. Why he didn't pray? Because he loved long hair and ladybugs, and blue-eyed sky and tiger eyes and the horizon promise of clouds afloat like the fall sails of arriving clipper ships. Because he was grateful for slow, steady rains, the persistence of worms, grass, and weeds, the genius of goat lust and hog hunger devoted to the purification of leftovers and waste. Because sky and earth, water and fire provide crosses too beautiful to hang saints on. The innuendos and hues of their shades too fine for any god or man to comprehend and own. Because he was a devout Democrat, a rebel, too defiant to bow down before any king, lording it over beggars wailing on their knees and desperate to exchange a crumb for a vote. Because he sought everywhere, call it grace, in the magic of canyon hues, in stream, bird, and leaf, in the eyes of bean pickers refusing to do harm, in Eden's stolen apple in his hand and free. This is for Monica, a belated anniversary. 46 years together. Thank you. It's a little dark, you know me. The curtains turn the living room to shade. My heart stutters there with you inside the cramped dark silences I've made into love's one safe place to hide. This glut of thought is not for me alone. I try combing my words silky as your hair, so you will love that mass and me as one, and feel my love as breezy evening air. In this gnarl of words lumped inside of me, I see my face in a mirror pale as a stone. Below the roots of trees we never see the tendrils unearthed notes that hum a tone. Here, speechless, my words lurk in the dark, and here, black inked, they scratch their dim mark. So what the leaves know? They know the power of place, their role, and the dazzling outcome of roots. They know the art of living within view of the two fragrances of life, sun and shade. The free politics, the politics of free passage for air allied to no state. They know the turn the other cheek tactic for storms allied to no state. I blew that. The turn the other cheek tactic for storms gone wild. They know how to brew the air we crave, how to orchestrate the incomparable music composed by anonymous wind. Leaves know how to sway and dance, how to put their colors on, blaze away, be outward and visible signs of a big, beautiful thing wonderfully in the way. On foggy, still nights, they know the atonement of sleep, the moment to let go. Thank you.
That was Emilio DeGrazia. We like to take an opportunity to show Unitarian that we appreciate this space that they give us for free and set up all this stuff. All we have to do is show up. It's a great deal. So if you're so inclined, I will pass the basket, the collection plate. It's a church. And while you're tending to that, I'll remind you that we have books for sale at this table, and you can talk to the poets, writers after the reading, and that a number of us usually gather and will gather at Sweeney's after the reading, conveniently located about 3 blocks this way and 1 block that way. If it's too wet to be outside, we will be in the back room where it's not as noisy. And so please join us there if you can. Ryan Vine is the author of The Cave and To Keep Him Hidden, winner of the Northeastern Minnesota Book Award, and the chapbooks Ward and Distant Engines, winner of a Weldon Keys Award. His poems have appeared in the American Poetry Review, Plowshares, the Southern Review, Poetry Daily, Verse Daily, and on National Public Radio's The Writer's Almanac. His honors include the Greensboro Review's Robert Watson Poetry Prize, grants from the Minnesota State Arts Board, and a Walter E. Dakin Fellowship in Poetry from the Sewanee Writers Conference. He is professor of English at the College of St. Scholastica in Duluth. Ryan Vine.
Which I would not argue it is a cold, dark, provincial place. But thank you, Richard, for the invitation. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited to be a part of this, to be among such fantastic writers. These poems I will read today come from my new book, which will be published on September 1st. Woo-hoo. Yeah, thanks. And it's available for pre-order. All right. Tick check. I try to catch each kid coming out of the shower. That way I don't feel like a prison guard ordering them to strip and spin. Arms above your head. Now grab your bits and lift. I once showed Leo and Eiley a photo of meth mouth to get a warning about toothbrushing through. I raised the tablet and they ran, screaming down the dark hall. The poor woman's face, a light in my hand, a crumbly hole. What kind of father am I? I'm trying to be here in these long moments where nothing happens but window smudges soaked with sun. Then comes the wet oration, the curtain flung, Leo's towel tossed back like a royal mantle. And now I'm on the toilet, splitting Eiley's damp hair into rows down which I work to keep my attention and not float away again to become like an alien, high above a foreign world, afraid to find the life I'm looking for. Tisher Creek. It's hot, so I haul the kids and 2 of their friends, brothers, to our favorite swimming hole. There's an easy waterfall with a spot for my butt thousands of years of flow have worn smooth, where the cool water washes over my swollen knee, and a sheer rock face like a slide down which all 4 kids plunge again and again. At first, they're flying. They're birds hunting fish. They're clouds crashing into their own reflections, but play changes quickly and already the Titanic is sinking and fast. Look, one brother says, tentacles. A whirlpool, the other shouts, the kraken. So out come the harpoons, which they pitch into the water, screaming and tearing at the air as they go down. Soon they start at each other, pantomiming blood squirting from their necks, hearts exploding like bombs. My daughter yells, help, help, and practices floating face down in the creek, in the shade and sun, where the boys above her laugh and die, laugh and die. Preschool. We're walking to the car, crunching snow across the yard, overburdened as usual with backpacks and books and lunches and bags, when my son says, you would make a good grave. What? I say. My gun could do that. You don't have a gun, I remind him, as he climbs into his car seat and waits, smiling for the familiar zip and click of the belt. Dad, he says, staring down the finger gun inches from my face, you're my best friend. Across the street, the birch look thinner and whiter in snow. I turn off the news, but too late, and drive slowly so we can watch two crows tuck and shoot through the tangled branches, like the two he loves from his favorite storybook, Odin's Black Angels, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory sent out across the world each morning with the hope that they come back. Today, luckily, we unbuckle his seatbelt and my son kisses my hand before we cross the street. Today, we hang his coat on the hook by his name and he runs through the open door and into the bright room of children playing without saying goodbye. This next poem is The Cave. And there's a bird in here called a magnificent frigate bird, and you may know of this bird, and magnificent is not my adjective, that's actually its name, magnificent frigate bird. Right? I always look at the robin in the yard and be like, the fantastic robin, the bombastic chickadee. The Cave. Leo and Eiley hover above me, playing doctor. Apparently, I've been shot through the eyes by a man hunting deer. Your eyes are ruined, they say, and lay a pair of wool socks over my face, over the fact that I just got in late last night from a week's vacation, still a little drunk, skin pink with sun. In Plato's allegory, the ignorant ones kill the traveler for what he's seen. But here, on the kitchen floor, they feel for my pulse with a styrofoam stethoscope, take a rusted tuning fork to my bad elbow. He's really sick, my daughter says, and leans down to blow her syrupy breath into me. Agreed, says my son, and taps a finger to my cheek. For a moment, they're silent as shadows like magnificent frigate birds soar across the socks on my face, until, at last, around my wrists, they clamp the iron bonds and drag the chains jingling through the dirt. Like a pang of a sweet, too sweet, the sound of their spike driven deep into stone. Air hose. In the back of the body shop, beside the banging air compressor, past the 10-foot pig stove into which we rolled old railroad ties to burn overnight, my father is blowing himself clean again. It's how he closed the door every day on the day's work. He's on the other side now of the row of cars half finished and just begun, and he's tired, lifting the shiny thumb lever grip to his head, starting at the top, where the compressed air like water from a garden hose rolls over his hair, and when he brings the bright nozzle to his chin and looks to the ceiling, his bangs fling up as though he's falling. He moves the hose side to side quickly over his torso, pasting the shirt against his big, hard belly, then flagpoles his skinny legs to spend good, long seconds on the brown, paint-stained boots. I've grieved his leaving too many times. I'm not going to do it again. I am my own father was a lie I'd learned to announce as he stood in the back, the last one there, blowing off the poison dust every weeknight before he left the body shop for Bridges Bar, then came home. Sea glass, in which the receding sea makes Black Beach a mirror, and I'm given another sky, where the green glass like a lozenge floats, rubbed rough and soft, and I feel after a long month of worry, the sea reminding the shard, your sand. I roll the glass clean between my hands, dip it into a tidal pool, and hold it up for the sun's simple refrain to fill. You can't stay sharp. I'm the light. So the less and less I hold each morning, I work to revise. And revision is the place I plan to spend my days. There's no such thing as done. Just a few more. Youth soccer. I feel sorry for my son. If you throw a ball at him, he goes, and he gets that from me. Youth soccer. Like if you could take the quick from Quicksilver so it was just a clump of slowly moving metal, these kids move from one side of the pitch to the other, kicking at shins so close they could hug. Leo has no idea what to do, but it's not his fault. This team's had more games than practices. Only the kids whose dads are out after work kicking around know what's going on. I'm no help. Skateboarder, fringe fucker, never played well with others, spent too much time staring at single things, waiting for my vision to blur. I take off my shoes and sink my bare feet into the cool, perfectly manicured grass. Spread out, my wife yells, mark up, as the kids stand together, as though holding hands, waiting for a throw-in, a blank-faced, disinterested wall. Leo, alone, behind them, stares at the passing clouds, raises his arms above his head and rises again and again on his toes like he's about to lift away. And someone behind me screams as another boy breaks off, windmilling across the pitch, bouncing as though chasing an invisible rabbit. No guts, no glory. But isn't it no guts, no gory? I can never remember. But I do remember, at their age, I would wipe my hand across fake wood paneling, and the grain, like swiping your hand through smoke, twisted and slithered as though alive. Good company. Walking through the snowy field, the day after I walked through the snowy field, I stepped next to my first set of prints. So anyone who cares to can see I was never alone. Eiley leads me into the woods. To a place across the street she wants to show me. To the hollow beneath the grove of squeaky willow. To a crick in the creek she's cleared of snow. To the spot she was standing when she first saw the deer melt on the hillside. 3 bright green portals to sunnier days, where a mama, I try to explain, and 2 fawns must have spent the snowy night. But before I can finish, she grabs my hand and squeezes, and for most of my life I've wanted language always to accompany me. But for right now, I'm good. Thank you.
what a night. One more round of applause for all tonight's speakers. Katrina Vandenberg, Renee Gilmore, and again, I remind you, books for sale, Sweeney's, this way, books that way. Oh, and next month, it's always the second Thursday in September. I think it's the 11th, isn't it, Mark?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Mark Walker welcomes Barry McDonald, Linny Seams, Ann Piper, and Bill McCarthy. Hope you'll join us.
Thank you.